Psalm 75 is a short psalm of trust that comes right on the heels of the gut-wrenching Psalm 74, where the destruction of the temple by the Babylonians in 586 BC is described. And it's as if immediately the psalmist responds by declaring this truth in the face of tragedy. It's a psalm of Asaph, and it expresses this confidence that God will judge justly. Now, that's particularly significant in the light of the fact that the Babylonians have just come in and unjustly destroyed the temple and carried away the people into captivity and essentially brought the end to the nation. And so in light of this calamity, it's significant that the psalmist responds by singing this song of trust. And notice the very first words, "We give thanks to you, O God. We give thanks for your name is near." And that's significant because God's temple has been destroyed, and it would seem that his presence was gone at this moment in history, and yet the psalmist says, your name is near. God, you are still near. Even though your temple is gone, your house is destroyed, we believe that you are still with us, and we recount your wondrous deeds. We remember. And this is a key part of dealing with tragedy and trauma, is to remember the goodness of God and what he has done for us in the past. And at this point then, the Lord himself speaks. There's a change in voice from the psalmist, in the plural, we give thanks, to the Lord himself speaking. And he declares that I will judge. There will be a time when all will be made right. And I love the promise in verse 3. When the earth totters and all its inhabitants, it is I who hold steady its pillars. The ancient understanding of the world was that it rested on pillars, that it was founded on these pillars. Underneath the earth was water, because everywhere you dug, you eventually hit water. Water came up from the earth in the form of springs. And so it was understood that the earth stood on pillars. And so God is declaring here that I am the one who holds things firm, even when the world seems to be in a precarious position. One of the dominant metaphors of this psalm is that of a horn. In verses 4 and 5, there's a reference to the horn, and the horn throughout the Old Testament is used as a symbol of strength. That makes sense. It was kind of the business end of a bull or a goat that could do some damage. It was an offensive weapon. And so it is used frequently as a symbol of strength. And here the Lord says to the boastful, don't boast. To the wicked, don't lift up your horn or speak with a haughty neck. Understand this, that God will judge. So enough of your boasting, enough of your strength. God is stronger yet. For not from the east or the west, nor from the wilderness does lifting up come, but it is God who executes judgment, putting one down and lifting another up. God is the great Equalizer, and this idea of lifting up and bringing down is a major metaphor in this psalm. In verse 8, we have another metaphor. The hand of the Lord contains a cup with foaming wine well mixed. He pours it out on the wicked of the earth, shall drain it down to the dregs. So he pours out his cup of wrath, and the wicked drink it down to the very bottom. This metaphor of a cup of God's wrath is frequent. It's found in music as well. You think of the Battle Hymn of the Republic, where the first verse states that the Lord is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He is making wine, the wine of his wrath that will be poured out in judgment. In the case of the Battle Hymn of the Republic, this was a Civil War era song that regarded the injustice of slavery as something that needed to be punished. And so the Civil War, the battles, the death, the catastrophe that this war was seen as God's wrath being poured out on those who had practiced the injustice of slavery. The psalmist returns to confidence and praise in verse 9 as the voice of the psalm changes. So the psalmist, God speaks in verses 6 through 8 is a description of what God does, and then verses 9 and 10, the statement of confidence. I will declare it forever. I will sing praises, and all the horns of the wicked I will cut off, but the horns of the righteous shall be lifted up. This promise that the strength of the wicked, the horns of the wicked will be cut off by the Lord, but the strength of the righteous will be lifted up. The psalmist ends with this confidence that even though he is eyewitness to the injustice that was the destruction of the temple, he is confident that he will see justice done, and the proud, the arrogant to be brought down, the humble will be lifted up. This is a common theme in song. It occurred back in 1 Samuel chapter 2 in the prayer of Mary. There are some similarities between these two, 10 verses of Hannah's song as well. And she prayed, "My horn is exalted." This is when she, as a barren woman, was told that she would be given a child. Samuel is born, and so she celebrates with this song. And she also states this concept of God bringing low the proud and exalting the humble, God judging the ends of the earth, exalting the horn of his anointed. We see similar language in another prayer of another woman who was blessed with a surprise child, that of Mary, Mary's Magnificat, where she says in the middle of her prayer that he has brought down the mighty from their thrones and has exalted those of humble. So both the prayer of Hannah before this psalm and the prayer of Mary after this psalm express the same theme, that God is just, he is the great equalizer, and that ultimately he can be trusted to make things right in this world.